Shalom Israel. Before I start, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Bahara Karkadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles in Israel, the will and teach well, to the Akim, to the Iwas and Buyers, and those pushing videos in truth and sincerity, to the brothers and sisters in truth. Now, this is just a short, quick video I want to do. It's regarding touching the carcasses of animals that are unclean. Does that make us unclean if we touch the carcass of an animal that is unclean? And I've seen brothers teach, like for instance this verse here, and the verse that we're going to touch is actually in Leviticus chapter 11, but it's further down. But I've seen brother teach this verse here, which is Leviticus 11:7. It says, "And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you. Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch. They are unclean to you." And in verse 8, where it says, "Of their carcass shall ye not touch, they are unclean to you," they said, look, you're not even meant to touch the carcass. Now, what I want to do is actually give the understanding of whether we can touch the carcasses of animals that are unclean. Does that actually make you unclean? But I'm going to jump down to verse 26. Yeah, it says, "The carcasses of every beast which divideth the hoof, and is not cloven footed, nor cheweth the cud, are unclean unto you. Everyone that toucheth them shall be unclean." So, reading that verse as it is, it sounds like if you touch the carcass of an animal which is unclean, because we know it says, "which divideth the hoof, and is not cloven footed, nor cheweth the cud, are unclean unto you." It sounds as if that means from you touch it, you're unclean. But let's read on. It says, "And whosoever goeth, and whatsoever, so like it goeth upon his paws, among all manner of beasts that go on all four, those are unclean unto you. Whoso toucheth their carcasses shall be unclean until the evening." So we know when you touch certain carcasses, and in these verses here, speaking about unclean animals, it means you are unclean until the evening. Verse 28, "And he that beareth the carcass of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. They are unclean unto you. These also shall be unclean unto you among the creeping things that creep upon the earth." So it's going into the animals and the creeping things. It says, "The weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after his kind, and the ferret and the chameleon and the lizard and the snail and the mole." So when we touch the carcasses of these things, it lets us know that they're unclean. But the key is in verse 31. It says, "These are unclean unto you among all that creep. Whosoever does touch them, when they be dead, shall be unclean until the evening." And this is the point. It says, when they be dead. When they be dead is referring to an animal that die of itself. It's not speaking about an animal that you yourself actually kill. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 39. Yeah, just to clarify that a bit more. It says, "And if any beast of which ye may eat," so now we're speaking about something that we can eat here. It says, "If any beast of which ye may eat die," yeah, and die is referring to die of itself. How do we know? This is Deuteronomy chapter 14, because this is the precept for that verse. Deuteronomy 14:21. It says, "Ye shall not eat of anything that die of itself," meaning you didn't kill this animal. You come around the corner, you see the animal dead. It says you can't eat it. "Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is in thy gates, that he may eat it. Or thou mayest sell it unto an alien, for thou an holy people unto the Lord thy power. Thou shalt not see a kid in its mother's milk." So we know an animal that die of itself, that we can't eat it. This is referring to something that's clean. Yeah, but we can give it to the other nations. So verse Leviticus 11:39, it says, "And if any beast of which ye may eat die," meaning die of itself, "he that toucheth the carcass thereof shall be unclean until the evening." So even an animal which is clean, if you find that animal dead, you don't know how it died, you didn't kill it, Touching the carcass of that animal makes you unclean. That is the same with an animal which is unclean. Yeah, if you did not kill the animal, touching the carcass of the animal makes you unclean. That's why it says here in Leviticus 11 and 31, these are unclean unto you among all that creep. Whosoever does touch them when they be dead, yeah, meaning you've come across this animal and you found it dead, you didn't kill it, shall be unclean until the evening. Now, when we go to Sirach chapter 15 and 20, it says, he has commanded no man to do wickedly, neither has he given any man license to sin. So the Most High is not going to tell you to do something that's going to make you sin. This is Leviticus 11 and 43. It says, ye shall not make yourselves a bondwool with any creeping thing that creepeth, neither shall ye make yourselves unclean with them, that ye should be defiled. Yeah, so we're not meant to intentionally make ourselves unclean. So with that being said, when you go to Exodus 25, yeah, and this is to let you know that when it says you should not touch the carcasses of these animals, this is referring to an animal that you've come across and you found that animal dead. Because like we just read, even if it's a clean animal, if you come across it and it's dead, you can't, and you end up touching that carcass, you become unclean. So this is Exodus 25 and 1. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring me an offering of every man that giveth it willingly with his heart, he shall take my offering. So the Most High is telling Moses to tell the people, to bring an offering willingly. Verse 3, and this is the offering which ye shall take of them, gold and silver and brass and purple and blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen and goat's hair. So we know goat's hair, goat is clean. For us to get the goat's hair, we'll have to kill the animal. It says, and ram skin dyed red. Same with the ram. A ram is clean. For us to get the skin of the animal, you'd have to kill the animal. It says, and badger skin. A badger is deemed unclean. It's not an animal that we can eat. But why is the Most High saying that we can bring a badger skin if touching the carcass, just solely touching the carcass of an animal that is unclean makes you unclean? Yeah. The point is, if you actually kill that animal, because we can kill animals to eat as long as those animals are clean. Yeah. We can kill that and touch the carcass without being deemed unclean. It's the same with an animal that is deemed unclean. If you kill it for whatever reason, you can touch the carcass of that animal without being unclean. This is why it says here that we can bring badger skin, because you would have killed that animal and skinned it. Therefore, you could bring the skin as an offering. But if you come across that animal and it's died of itself, yeah, that's when it becomes unclean, which is the same as we read with an animal that is clean if it dies of itself. Now, this is Proverbs, because even within that, you need to deal with understanding. This is Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 7. It says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all that I get, you get understanding. So within everything that's been said, you still have to use wisdom and understanding. Yeah, the reason why I brought that out is because, let's say for argument's sake, you've got a pen at the back of your house and you've got sheep in it. Now, these sheep are clean, but you come out and find one of those animals dead. You can't say, well, you know what, I'm not going to touch it because it's going to make me unclean. Yeah, you can't leave that animal, that dead animal, amongst all the other livestock. So you'd have to remove that animal. But in doing so, you will be unclean, and then the Lord tells you what you have to do, which will be, to wash your clothes and wash yourself. He also that beareth the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and shall be unclean until the evening. Yeah. He that eateth of the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. He also that beareth the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. So you're not going to leave the animal amongst the other herds. You're going to remove the animals, but in doing so, that will make you unclean. That's not you intentionally going out there to make yourself unclean. Another instance, if you're walking through the woods, you come across an animal, let's say an unclean animal, a clean or unclean animal, you just come across the animal dead. Yeah, there's no real reason for you to trouble that animal. You can leave it where it is, let nature take its course. You know, there's no reason for you to touch that carcass to intentionally make yourself unclean. So this is just something I wanted to really bring out, because like I said, going back to verse 7 and 8, you know, brothers are taught where it says, of their flesh ye shall not eat, and their carcass ye shall not touch. This is actually referring to eating. That's the context of this. Yeah, so the carcass of an animal which is unclean, you should not touch it to eat it. Yeah, but if you kill the animal, you can touch the carcass without making yourself unclean. But with an animal that is unclean and an animal that is clean, yeah, if you come across it, you know, you see it dead, might have been killed by a wild beast, or you're not sure why it died, you just find it dead, touching that carcass will make you unclean. Yeah, and that's what the scripture teaches. This is Psalms 119 and verse 104. Yeah, because brothers that have actually said, if you touch, you know, going back to Leviticus 7 and 8, they've just told you that, oh, you're not even meant to touch it, but they've not actually brought out the precepts to clarify that. So this is what I wanted to do. It says Psalms 119 and 104. Through thy precepts I get understanding. This is how we understand the scriptures, through going through the precepts. It says, therefore I hate every false way. So hopefully this is just meant to be a short lesson. Hopefully you can get some understanding with that. So I'm going to close out. I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Mahara Carcass, Kwam Rosh Allah.